Konnichiwa. Today we're going to talk about dirty tricks in particularly Japanese vocabulary and kanji. Now, why are we using dirty tricks? Essentially, this is because there is a phase in learning Japanese that I call the big hill, and this is the transition between getting some structure and basic working vocabulary. In terms of structure, I recommend you watching and assimilating to a pretty reasonable degree at least the first 20 episodes in my organic structure course. And I'll put a card for that over my head in case you don't know it. And jumping into real immersion in Japanese material. And from that point on, we're learning everything except structure. From that, we're learning our vocabulary, we're learning our kanji, and we're learning how the structure, the underpinnings of the language work in real use. We're not reading a lot of textbooks, we're not doing textbooks type exercises, we're immersing in real Japanese. And because of that, there is a period where it can be a bit overwhelming. We've got to overcome an awful lot at once, and it can help to throw in a few dirty tricks that temporarily shortcut the process. So I'm going to use a comment that was sent to me by one of my patrons, both fall and summer, as an example of the problems we encounter and what we can do about them. So both fall and summer writes, "Hello, I've just finished watching my first episode of an anime in Japanese, and I'd like to share my experience with you. I started with Shirokuma Cafe, and it feels as if it was made for people learning Japanese. It shows very natural and casual conversation, and this is superb for beginners. I tend to enjoy such tranquil scenes in scenario writing anyway, and Japanese humor is always welcome too. I'd already seen someone recommend this anime as a good starting point back when I began my adventure in Japanese, so seeing you doing a walkthrough of it recently came to me as a bit of a surprise. Yes, I do recommend Shirokuma Cafe, and I did do a partial walkthrough of the first episode to help people get started. I'll put a card for that over my head, so you can take a look if you're interested. I finished but an episode. However, I can already notice how natural the anime watching method, or as you'd describe it, jumping straight into the water, is. I often find myself thinking about all those people doing myriad Anki decks, studying for the sole purpose of passing some meaningless exams, instead of actually tackling real Japanese, and that's exactly how I feel about it. But it does have its problems, and both fall and summer goes on to introduce us to some of those. One of the problems I'm facing, though, are kanji, especially those compound ones consisting of two kanji. I sometimes struggle with pronunciation or even meaning of okurigana with one kanji, and now imagine my hardship with words like futsu. Even when I listen to the soundtracks, those 2 to 4 kanji words are spoken so fast that I rarely manage to pick out their spelling, not to mention the whole meaning and writing. Is this something that will come naturally to me? I've watched your videos pertaining to kanji, and I've been doing the Sun Sisters deck. Right, so I'm going to stop there and talk about this particular problem, because it's an important one. By learning kanji as words, and by learning the Sun Sisters particularly, we can get a good grip on kanji, but the thing about this is that learning kanji naturally, learning how the on-readings fit together to make logical word structures, is the best way to learn, but in these early stages, and especially when we're using our passive sound listening, which is an important part of the organic method, it's just going too fast to remember the kanji structure, to remember the Sun Sisters, to remember the meaning all at once. So this is an occasion where we need to start thinking in terms of a dirty trick. Now, the dirty trick I recommend here is essentially pinning simply the sound of the word to its meaning. So we're kind of short-circuiting the kanji here, and we can use any kind of mnemonic we like. It doesn't matter if it's English or our other native language or whatever, because mnemonics are just scaffolding. We're not going to live with them. They'll fall away over time. So in this case, for example, we'll take the example of futsu. Futsu means ordinary or regular. So we could just do a silly mnemonic like some people drive cars, but ordinary people use their futsu. Now this is silly and it's kind of shortcutting the kanji, but that's okay because it's going to give us a link to the word. We're going to understand it when we hear it spoken. And then we can go on to a second dirty trick and we can put the pronunciation of that word, the hiragana, and the sound file, and we're automatically creating sound files as we go along via Yomi-chan. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I'll put a card up there for the method by which we do this, onto the front of the card. So you're not worrying too much about the kanji. Take a look at them, but you're seeing that pronunciation and you're going straight from the pronunciation to the meaning. Is this a bad practice that will stop you learning kanji? Yes, it is. So you don't want to overuse it, but it's not going to stop you learning the kanji permanently. What's going to happen, especially as you start putting written-only material into your intake, like manga and novels and text-centered games, and as you get more used to the kanji in general and the on-readings and the sound sisters, you'll find that you get to a stage where you don't need the pronunciation help and you can put that back onto the back of the card where it really belongs. Now, you shouldn't use this trick too extensively or it really will start interfering with your kanji learning, but you can use it wherever you want and particularly where you want to clarify some audio that you're learning. So you're shortcutting the complicated process of recognizing the audio with a quick audio mind link. And this means that you're using the audio every day to build up your understanding of that word as a sound to meaning concept. And then you've only got to throw in the kanji a bit later. And that's going to become easier and easier as you go along. Now, you might ask at this stage, isn't this going to tie us too closely to an English definition or mnemonic? And my answer to that is, to a small extent, it could, but the best preventative for this is to make sure you have Japanese audio on the back of that card. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to do this monolingual transition thing that some people talk about, and I've explained this in another video which I'll link here. You just have to find a simple Japanese to Japanese definition if you can, and if you can't, at least pop in a very short and simple, short as possible, simple as possible, Japanese sentence. That way, you don't have to look at your English or whatever mnemonic every time. All you have to do, once you're actually starting to learn the word, is click over to the back of the card. Don't even look at it, just listen to that quick Japanese sentence or quick Japanese definition, and that will give you a check that you've got the meaning broadly right. And remember that broadly right is all you need. You're going to get used to the word from the actual immersion. So you pop in that sentence and you turn it into audio with awesome TTS, and I'll put the link to where I explain all this in the information section below as well. Bothforn Sama also says that he gets a lot of leeches and spends a lot of time dealing with leeches. Now, leeches are when Anki thinks you're taking too long to learn a word and you ought to give up on it for now. And the thing here is that if you're a perfectionist, and some people are, they try to unleash leeched words and keep going at them. Now, if you feel you're on the verge of learning the word, or that you really, really need that word, then you can do that. But on the whole, I would allow leeches to stay leeched, because the important thing about all these dirty tricks, and leeches in a way are a kind of dirty trick built into Anki, is that it's never your last chance to learn a word. You will get another chance to learn it. If you don't get another chance to learn it, then you didn't need it, did you? It's not an abstract game of learning words. It's a question of learning words that you actually need to use or understand in practice. And it's also a question that SRS Anki is the thief of immersion time, so you don't want to be spending vast amounts of your immersion time playing with Anki. So, where we come to a difficult problem, if we can shortcut it, if we can temporarily get it out of the way with a dirty trick, that's what we ought to be doing. And of course there's a balance here. You don't want to do this to every word. You don't want to have pronunciation or audio on the front of most of your words. But you also need to find that balance and stop them from holding you up, stop them from getting in the way of your understanding the audio. So judiciously use dirty tricks to help you to get over the big hill of moving into real Japanese immersion, which is the core of learning Japanese. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments below, and I will answer as usual. I'd like to thank my gold Kokeshi patrons who make these videos possible, and all my patrons and supporters on Patreon and everywhere, who not only make these videos possible by allowing me financially to do them, but also maintain this conversation that allows us to keep getting deeper into the processes of learning Japanese. And as always, I'd like to thank you for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします。Class dismissed.